take on the Writer Guild strike? What's happening? Why is it such standoff for so long? What do the studios have in mind? And where do you see this all headed?
My honest opinion is I think both sides wanted a strike. I think that was the problem. I think both sides wanted and needed a stoppage. And now it's almost like a little bit like Iraq, without not nearly as important. But the outcome, as far as there's no exit strategy, they don't know where to go now. And both sides, as I understand it, aren't even talking, which is really frustrating because it's supposedly by the middle of February will have cost LA County $1 billion. People losing their homes, carpenters, electric, grip, dry cleaners, bars and restaurants that are empty. I was going to do a big kitchen remodel, hoping to do it finally this season. And when I heard about the strike, I haven't had a paycheck since October. We're lucky that we're really well paid for what we do and very grateful for it. But still, you just watch your savings go away. And so people stop spending. And you know how that affects the economy. So the trickle down is really mind-blowing. And there's no end in sight. Sunday night was our last episode. 20 million viewers, our biggest audience in 2 years. And then we shut down. It's really, really frustrating. And it may end up, according to our creator, Mark Cherry, it may be the season finale. That may be all we have. And if that's the case, and we don't get back in the next 3 or 4 weeks, there won't be a fall 08. And if that happens, there's really no incentive for them to get back at all. So there may be no new episodes. Whether your favorite show is House or Lost or Grey's Anatomy, whatever it is, you won't have it for as much as a year and a half or 2 years. And people, I don't think anybody realizes the severity and the fact that the writers are fighting a really worthwhile battle. I mean, the average writer makes $62,000 a year. A lot of money where I came from. Not so much in the current LA climate. And all they're asking is to be paid for what they create. And currently they get zero for what is sold on the internet by the studios. I don't think it's too much to ask to give them a tiny. I think they're asking for 2 cents now.
What effect is this going to have on the other unions? There's other contracts coming up in the spring.
I don't think it'll affect the Directors Guild much. I think the Directors Guild may end up making a deal quicker. Their contract's up in June, and they've never struck. Well, they struck one time for 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes. Their issues are very different. They don't get paid the same way. The actors on the other side are just like the writers in that what deal they get will probably dictate what deal we get. The residual systems are very similar. We don't get paid for anything that's sold online. I have so many friends that watch Housewives on the internet or podcast or whatever, and we don't get a penny. Which today is not backbreaking, but in a few years, when your TV has an Ethernet cable instead of a coax cable, it's a computer, and it changes how people get paid. And I don't think any of the unions are willing to take the risk that we all have computers in our living room and nobody gets paid for content that they created for the network. So it's a very legitimate, worthwhile cause, but they do have to compromise, and the sooner they sit down, the better.
Is there an attempt here by the studios to try to really restructure the industry in 2 ways? One is break the back of the unions to some extent, and number 2, do they even want to change what kind of programming's on television? Are they actually losing interest in high-end drama?
Yes and yes, I agree 100%. I think they're more than willing. Rupert Murdoch said about the strike, it's fine with me. Those programs are expensive. I'm saving money because he has American Idol. I don't think he'd be quite so arrogant if he didn't, because no other network feels that way. There's only one American Idol to go around. And I think when they flood it with all these really, really low-cost programming, as you know, it costs nothing to put on a game show or a talent show. I know it's attractive to the networks, and they're willing to try it. So I think right now they're in no rush to make a deal because they want to give it a run and see if people will watch it. Problem is, when they don't come back. We found that before. It was like the commercial strike earlier. You send the work somewhere else, send people, let them find another way to do things, and it's hard to get them back. So it's certainly self-defeating, but I do believe that they like to break the union. I know that part of the reason this is dragging on is because if the producers can cripple the actors monetarily, we won't be able to afford to strike in June. At least that's their belief. But it's at that point, it'll be such a matter of principle, and we really can't afford to go with the deal they want. We'll still strike, but I can't imagine what it's going to do to the business and the economy and the viewers that go somewhere else for entertainment and never come back. Ultimately, that only costs the studios.
What about the talk shows going back on?
It's disappointing. I mean, I really respect David Letterman for what he did. He paid his employees when they were down, when they weren't working, which is very admirable. He got together, Worldwide Pants struck a deal with the Writers Guild that the writers were happy with, and the writers went back to work with the blessing of the union, the way it should have been. I'm not sure what kind of effect that's going to have. I don't know if we would have been better off if no one had gone back, or if these deals start being made on the side, the fragmentation might bring the producers back to the table. Nobody seems to know the answer. Disappointing that Leno and Conan went back. basically crossing the picket line. They'll have trouble getting actors on, that's for sure, but for now they can have presidential candidates.
And Stewart's going back?
Stewart is going back. I have to believe they may be making a deal because I know they're writers. I know enough about John. I'm curious to see how that works because that'll really surprise me if he goes back without a deal agreed to by the Writers Guild. I bet they're making a deal similar to Worldwide Pants, but I'm not sure.
And why should other people care about the Writer Guild strike? Why should the rest of America care?
You know, it's one of those things. It's people feel so differently. You know, organized labor is very polarizing. Many people, depending on where they fall in the business world, have different beliefs about it. LA's a union town. Without the Screen Actors Guild, we wouldn't have a residual program, we wouldn't have health benefits, we wouldn't have retirement. So it's one of those things that, depending on where you fall on the organized labor, that's where you're going to fall on this. But it's a group of people that are dependent on the union for all those benefits I mentioned. Moving into the future with the internet, trying to move with technology, and the producers are just willing to give, which is understandable. Nobody wants to give away money, but it's just not realistic. So it's an important cause for anybody who is dependent on a union, and that's why it's important for the Teamsters to support it, which they have, and the Screen Actors Guild to support the Writers Guild, because it's the cause that you know, we all know what unions have meant to American labor. So this is just another battle. Even though writers seem like a bunch of rich guys, it's still the same battle.